warned this video will contain spoilers. The introduction of Barrow Wights in the Rings of Power sparked a lot of interest among fans, especially because these eerie creatures have been long established in Tolkien's lore. Their chilling presence in The Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring book, added a deep sense of danger and mystery, though Peter Jackson's film adaptations left them out. However, Prime Video's prequel series made sure to include them, albeit with some twists that deviate from Tolkien's original version. In The Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 4, we see Galadriel, Elrond, and their elven companions wandering into the Barrow Downs, an ancient burial ground that holds more secrets than meets the eye. What they encounter is far from peaceful. A messenger sent by Gil-galad to Celebrimbor had been killed, and suddenly, the dead from nearby graves start rising. These weren't just any corpses either, accompanied by a haunting chant with lines like, "Cold be hand and heart and bone." It was clear to book readers that Barrow Wights had made their terrifying return. This reanimation was a major twist for fans who've known the Barrow Wights' original backstory, and the show adapted them in a way that feels both familiar and fresh. What's fascinating about the Barrow Wights in the Rings of Power is that, according to an elf's remark, the Barrow Downs were once the resting place of ancient kings of men. Although there's no exact confirmation of who these kings were, it's heavily implied that these figures date back to Middle-earth's first age. In Tolkien's lore, these Barrow Downs were intended for the noble ancestors of the Edain, men who bravely fought alongside the elves against Morgoth during the Wars of Beleriand. This is a significant piece of Middle-earth's history, adding layers of depth to the Barrow Wights' origins. It suggests that the bodies buried there are ancient, perhaps the very first of men, making the undead kings a dark and haunting piece of Middle-earth's long history. In the Rings of Power, however, the Barrow Wights' reanimation is linked to Sauron. Though not confirmed outright, Galadriel suspects that Sauron had passed through the Barrow Downs on his way to a region, using his sinister magic to reanimate these long-dead kings and turning them into weapons of terror. This move is incredibly strategic as it forces anyone traveling from Lindon to a region, where Celebrimbor is hard at work forging the Rings of Power, to face these undead threats. It's also a chilling indication of Sauron's ability to manipulate even the dead to achieve his goals. The effectiveness of Sauron's tactic becomes all the more evident when you consider the fate of Gil-galad's messenger. His supplies and dead horses littered the Barrow Downs, signaling that he was likely ambushed and killed by the Barrow Wights. Galadriel's group would have likely faced the same grim outcome if it weren't for Elrond's quick thinking. Elrond, discovering weapons hidden within the barrows, uses them to fight off the Barrow Wights. These were no ordinary weapons either. They seem to be the only tools capable of defeating these ancient undead kings, a detail that shows how powerful and dangerous these creatures really are. This aspect of the show marks a noticeable departure from Tolkien's original lore. In the books, Frodo and his friends encounter the Barrow Wights in the Fellowship of the Ring, but they are saved not by weapons but by the mysterious Tom Bombadil. His singing, a powerful ability to control dark forces, was what ultimately freed the hobbits. This major difference suggests that the Rings of Power is taking liberties with the lore, favoring a weapon-based solution instead of the mystical and enigmatic power of Tom Bombadil. Still, it's clear that the Rings of Power took inspiration from Tolkien's idea of the Barrow Blades. In the books, after saving the hobbits, Bombadil gives them blades from the Barrow Downs. These weapons turn out to be crucial later on, as they possess magical properties that allow them to harm the Nazgul or Ringwraiths. The Rings of Power expands on this concept, making the Barrow Downs a source of ancient weapons capable of defeating undead foes like the Barrow Wights. Another significant change in the Rings of Power is the nature of the Barrow Wights themselves. In Tolkien's works, the Barrow Wights were actually spirits that inhabited graves, rather than the reanimated bodies of ancient kings. The show's interpretation, where Sauron uses the bodies of these old kings as his tools, gives a darker twist to the story. It may not be entirely faithful to Tolkien's vision, but it adds a menacing layer to the ongoing conflict between Sauron and the elves. Now, I'd love to hear what you think. Do you enjoy this new interpretation of the Barrow Wights in the Rings of Power? Or do you prefer Tolkien's original vision? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss.